Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a law from 1963 that even now shapes the lives of millions of landlords and tenants in Ghana, the Rent Act. It's basically the official rulebook for one of the most fundamental parts of life, having a roof over your head. So let's just jump right in with a question that I bet every single one of us who's ever rented a place has asked. How in the world do you know if the price is fair? It doesn't matter if you're the landlord or the tenant, that one question can cause a whole lot of stress. Well, it turns out Ghana's Rent Act of 1963 was created to build a system to answer that exact question. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at what the act is, we'll meet the key players, the rent officer and the magistrate, and see what they can do. Then we'll walk through the process for figuring out a fair rent, and finally, get to why this old law is still so important today. Okay, so first things first, what is this law really all about? What was it designed to do? You know, the official language always sounds a little heavy, doesn't it? But the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. The whole point of the act was to bring some order and fairness into the rental market. It's about two main things: controlling how rent is set and creating clear legal rules for evictions. So you've got these rules, but who actually makes sure people follow them? I mean, a law is only as good as the system set up to enforce it. So let's meet the key players. And the act itself lays this all out really clearly, right there in Part 2. The whole system basically boils down to two main roles, and they're designed to handle everything from the ground up. Think of it kind of like this. On one side, you have the rent officer. They're like the first responder, the investigator on the scene. If you have an issue, they're your first call. On the other side, you have the rent magistrate. They're the judge. They're the one who hears appeals and makes the final, legally binding call. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into the rent officer. What can this person actually do for you? Well, their role is incredibly hands-on. Wow, okay, so when you look at their duties laid out in Section 5, you can see they're doing a ton. Their main gig? To assess the recoverable rent, which is just the legal term for a fair legal price. But it doesn't stop there. They investigate complaints from both sides, they keep official records, they can even take a case to the magistrate if someone's breaking the rules. They are really the engine room of this whole system. But what happens if you don't agree with the rent officer? What if you're a landlord and you think the rent is way too low? Or you're a tenant and you think it's too high? Well, that is exactly why the rent magistrate exists. And this brings us to the next level of the process, which is all laid out in Part 3 of the Act. The magistrate is that crucial judicial backstop to all the work the rent officer does. The magistrate is basically the check and balance on the whole process. It's their job to hear from anyone, landlord, tenant, whoever, that's not happy with that first assessment. It means there's always a path for appeal, which is super important. And listen, their decision, it carries a ton of weight. According to Section 8 of the Act, their decision on the rent amount is final. That's huge. It's meant to put an end to the back and forth and give everyone a clear legal answer. So we know who the players are. Now let's walk through how this all works in practice. How do you actually get a fair rent assessed? For that, we turn to Part 4 of the Act. It gives us a really clear step-by-step guide for this whole process, so it's handled the same way every time. It's a pretty straightforward 4-step path. First, someone, either the landlord or the tenant, kicks things off with an application. Step 2, the rent officer jumps in, does their investigation, and comes up with a number. Now, here's the crucial part. Step 3, if you're not happy, you have just 7 days to appeal to the magistrate. And finally, Step 4, the magistrate hears the case and makes the final call. That's it. It's designed to take you from a question to a legally binding answer. So, we've gone through all the details, the officers, the magistrates, the process. But let's zoom out. Why does any of this matter? I mean, we're talking about a law that's decades and decades old. At the end of the day, what this law does is create a system. It's a framework designed to protect everyone. It replaces arguments with a clear process. For a tenant, it's a safety net against crazy random rent hikes. And for a landlord, it gives them a proper legal way to handle things. It just brings some much-needed structure to what can be a really tricky relationship. And that kind of leaves us with one big question to chew on. This whole framework was set up back in 1963. The world and Ghana's rental market looks, well, a lot different today. So you have to wonder, is a law from that long ago still the right tool for the job today? It's definitely something to think about.